recording now too, so that's good. All right, there we go. Welcome everyone. Let's do some programming today. So we're making a F1 camera controller. So what it does, what it will do, what my intention is, it will pick the closest battles in F1 and focuses on those. And whenever there's a yellow flag, it should focus on that specific person who caused the yellow flag and possibly like go with that flow. So currently I have a quick setup. So I currently have the F1 telemetry loaded in, Robot.js for controlling my keyboard input. So we have some camera keys set up. Might need. It's possible that this is F7 FN. Call really quick. That's what we'll do when I'm gonna go in the game and check it. Well, then we have the default position. So currently we're always, when you load up the application, it will always start on position 0. So meaning it will be from whoever loads it in. So now so whenever you load up the application, that you'll always need to look at the first person in position who is in the first position. For instance, you're always going to start the application when you're looking at P1. Then we have here the function to check if the session is a qualifying session, because for qualifying it requires some different logic. We're going to look at who is closer to capture the closer battles. Here we're just gonna start up the telemetry client. Listen to the events where I've already started to sort based off position, our position, and here we start listening to the driver, to the actual game's telemetry. We do need another constant, which will be switch switch camera view, just so you can focus on the first person or third person, which will also be one. Is onboard will be false by default. So then the camera would keeps like checks if you're on board, and then you can also switch that around. Then let's quickly, just because I started streaming, yeah, right, good. All right, so I'm also gonna quickly boot up my Steam, just so I can boot up F1. Do that some stuff too. All right, that open. All right, well, my logic will probably be this because lab data. So let me just quickly check that in my download. So this is the F1 telemetry data right here. So there should also be the lab data, packet lab data right here. Yeah, so here has all the lab data for all the cars on track, and lab data contains all this data. What I'm currently going to look at is the lab distance. How far the person is already into the lab, and compare that to all the people and check what the difference is between them. So I know which one to focus on. That's going to be the thing. So then first we're gonna, of course, sort on position. And is that necessary? We could also immediately check on lab distance, because that should contain the position too. So that should be, we're going to check on the lab distance then. So lab distance, and then we're gonna check on sorted by distance. Let me just rename. So this will be how far they are in their lab. I think in the back end it will probably be the same for calculating the position. If you're further into the lab than another person, that means their position is that way. So yeah, let me take a sip of my coffee. Oh. So next up is that we're gonna check all the differences in between people. So I think the best way would be to go through each of them. Check if he's not the last person. So go through each car. Check if they are not last, because otherwise it will check if they are not last. Check their lowest. No, check their lap distance compared car behind. Then let's state some rules. I'm gonna state the rule up here. Camera controller rules. So let's say, so the minimum distance for focus. Minimum distance for focus will probably be about, and I think, let me check that, which is in meters, which could be negative if line hasn't crossed yet. Okay, so that's also a thing that we should check. So probably on the first lap that they haven't crossed it yet. Actually, that shouldn't be an issue, because other persons behind would also be less than 0. So the min distance for focus, which is in meters then, would be 800. That would probably be checked though. That's something we need. The constant for we also need one that is minimum focus time, because of course we don't want it to be, it will also be in milliseconds. I'll probably say something like 25 seconds, milliseconds. So minimum focus time will make it so whenever we change the focus, that's the minimum time it needs to be focused on that person before it can switch to another person. Of course, if the battle is still technically they are the closest battle, then it stays focused on them, but depending on that. So I think that would be a pretty good one. So those are two camera controller rules, which will what it will check on. So it will go through each car, check if they are not less, check if their lap if their lap distance compared to the car behind is closer than minimum focus distance, then we also need a camera controller how would I call that? Probably something like limitations. So let's make a limitation for can change focus, which will just be a true-false statement. Because what we will do is we'll set a timeout where it will check if it has finished the focus time, and then it can technically change focus again. So check if it can change focus. Change focus. So that's technically the plan that we're going for. So that will probably, that just will be for constant car of car sorted by lap distance. I love the of statement in JavaScript. It's so nice. So now we go through each car in the list, and then I'll check if that car. Yeah, but that won't work. Now that I think of it, because I of course need to know what the index is. So this would be constant I in that. All right. So then we'll do a constant car in here, which is car sorted by lap distance I. And first we'll check if car sorted by lap distance dot length. Now this is the one that I'll probably fuck up. Like if I plus 1. Oh, but in will make it a string that I start off, so I need to do this as plus I plus 1, because otherwise it'll because whenever you use in, it will make it so I will be a string, which also be moreover it will be marked as a string, which is why I need the plus in front of it, because otherwise it won't convert it back to an int. So I plus 1 If that's equal to the length, which it would if it's the last car, then we'll return. You also need to check if the person is an actual, if he's actually driving, because that's something I thought of too. Because technically it states here, right, that it's lap data of 22, lap data of all cars on the track. The thing is, not all lobbies are 22 players. So we'll have here inactive and invalid. Curious what it will be if what the invalid or inactive will be. So let's just check if that's actually something we can check on. So console log right here. Then we'll need car position. We could do car position. Like, this is something that is like the more annoying part, right? Technically, we could. We need to sort it. We need to sort it for this part, like to check if it's closer. But thing is, do we need to sort it for, or because we can't sort it if we want to check for all the participants. That's an part about this data, like there's no participants ID, like that would be nice. But that's not an option, so we can't really check for we can't really get the participants ID based off actual person. So what we would need to do, right, is get this, then we'll do, because that will probably be correct then if I would do that. So what I'm gonna do is what I need to, so car, then I would need to do this prior. So let's just do that. Let's just always make sure we have car at the top. So we have that easy accessible. Then we'll do data lab dot index of car, because of course these have all those cars in it. So then we always have that idea. And then we'll type here will be build status. So car dot m result status, right, is equal to 0. Then it should be valid. If it's something else, then gonna check for it's gonna be disgusting. So let's just check if it's that's is valid. Which will be default to false, default that to true, and then if car dots result status. Actually, I could have done that inside of the string. And result status is either 0 or car dot result status is 1. So that's either invalid or inactive. I don't know what inactive will mean. I would think everyone is active, but I assume that everyone would be active, but apparently that could be true. So let's check this. Okay, so if it's either 0 or 1, we'll make it so it will say invalid, and otherwise it will be valid. And we'll end with a /n, so everything has an empty line in between. And then, of course, if it's the last card, we'll return out of here, but that doesn't cut that right now. So let's quickly start this up. Let's add the script here. Scripts. Start. Node dot yarn start. What's the issue? I missed a comma. That's the issue. Of course. Most default thing that you'll forget is a comma. Non-VR because we're not going VR. Okay. Let's hit multiplayer. Browse one. Let's. Are busy. 1 out of 3. That. Oh yeah. Second. Oh yeah, that's a problem. I just thought of. Yeah. Actually, give. So fun if you have big is that file? 16 gigs on it. You have a backup, right? Game. It's worth. I'm correct. I own one. So I'll copy over that here. That there. So fun if you mod your game. Files. Technically, that should be it. At least they don't ban you for mods on a mod, they just throw you out of the session. There we go. AI, fair. Oh, okay, so there's still a file in there that's... Let's quickly verify files. In the meantime, we'll... that's something I forget sometimes. Local files, verify integrity. Should be fast, it's on SSD. Anyway, let's go back to that. Alright, so that will be something useful to test later on. Okay. Then we're going to, so we check if they are not less, right? Now we're going to check if their lap distance compared to the car behind is closer than a minimum focus team. So I'm also need to check, store if it's actually the closest. So, check if it's closer than the closest battle. So I need to... Let's just make this data so I can as well. Let closest... no, actually. That should be created in here. So let's closest cars on track is going to be car front car. So we'll have front car and rear car, like I'm not gonna fill in that data because otherwise I don't have it anything to fill it with, so that's going to be the issue. So check if it's close to the closest pedal, so that's fair. So we have front car, rear car, and probably the distance, so the difference distance. So let's check, get their difference, right? So let's distance difference equals to so that's the car dot mlab distance. But you also always need to check it from the car behind because that one has the bigger. Oh, actually no, not the first car has the bigger. The car behind has less. So minus +1, and don't forget that this needs plus. So So that's something I really. That's the one thing I hate with for loops with an in statement. Like, I wish this could be a, but I don't want to convert it first. So, and I don't know if there's an actual way for that. I haven't found that yet. I haven't really. So let's say, okay, has Steam already verified? It's at 70, all right. So we have a distance difference, right? The distance difference will be checked if. So let's make this that, and then distance difference will be like something way high. No. So let's just say if it's 0. Actually, let's just leave it empty and then we'll check if it actually has a value. So let's check if distance difference is bigger than the minimum distance for focus, then we will return. So this is the check if they are not last. That's actually this. Then we'll have the check if their lab is not that. Okay, just fixing it right now. So else, I think it's already done. It's all right, good. Then check if it's closer than the closest battle, which will be if closest car on track has a value and closest cars on track dot distance difference is smaller than the minimum distance for folk. No, not minimum. Than the current distance difference, and we will. Otherwise, we will store that. And closest cars on track is distance difference. Because that's actually the same name. So we'll have front car, the car, and rear car. Why did I do it? Hold on. Is that checks. Let's just make that, by the way, here. So const rear car equals that. Oh, not what I wanted to do. Oops. Oh, and apparently that does that. Not what I wanted to do. What was it? What's the rename button? Rename symbol, just F2 or Control F2 for all currencies. Not Control F2. So car will be front car. So front car and rear car. Then we'll store the closest battle. Then check if found closest battle, which will just be an if closest cars on track. And what we'll do then, check if it can change the focus. If can change focus, it's false, then we'll return. By the way, why did I do return, by the way? I should make this a function, by the way, now that I think of it. So this would be a return, which is correct. This shouldn't be a return, this should be a continue. This should also be a continue. This can technically also be a continue, which means we'll skip out of it anyway. Check if found closest pedal. And check if it can change the focus. And can change focus. Then that will be correct. And then we'll just change the focus. So that would be easy. Then we'll just get the closest cars on track. The rear car, that position. M position. If I recall that correctly. M underscore car position. Why did it have to be car position? So that. So change camera focus to that. And we'll make a function for that. So focus. Which is just function. Is specified. And this should technically be. So then we'll check if the spectator index, if spectator index maybe smaller than position, then we'll need a for loop for let I be 0, I is smaller. Yeah, I could do a for. So I is smaller than, so spectator index is smaller than. So that means the position will probably be 20, and for instance, spectator index 5. So if we're currently looking at position 5 and we go to the spectator position, so that means position minus the spectator. Position minus spectator index. I plus plus. And what we'll execute is robot on key tab, the move camera position down. Should technically. All these should technically be keyed now that I think of it. Go. Else, if spectator index bigger than the position, so position is 5 and spectator index is 20, then to be spectator index minus position and work downwards. Let's do that. So that means this minus position. Go up. And then don't forget to always update spectator indexed position. So otherwise, fuck up when the next time. And set interval, set timeout to set and change focus to false. Sorry to with focus time. I also need to change focus to so technically that should be that, right? Okay. Then for now, I'll return here just to check if continue, sorry. I'll continue here just so I can check that console log for every car. I'll start the game. Now it should be able to just join. Okay. There we go. So there are some invalid cars in there. So we have on from 12 to 21. Or to 21. Back 12 to 21. Which means it states that there's X, 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, Sorry, I can't really count. So let me just drag this up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, 8, 9, 10, which is correct because it's 10 drivers. Question is, does that mean they need to be either, just remove that part of that if statement, just so, yeah, YouTube. Just so I can check if that works. So now it still states same. But that's correct. So I need to check off this. So I need to filter. Where the C R C dots result status is not equal to 0. Cars that are not participating to be included. Hey Sabine. How you doing, man? Because I want to work on YouTube more because Twitch is being a little bit of a douche lately. And YouTube has some exciting changes coming up in 2023, so alright, so now we currently have that it filters out all the people that aren't participating, right? All the cars that aren't participating. Then we can remove this continuous. We don't need to skip it anymore. Let me quickly check if, by the way, my buttons are correctly. Wait, oh wow, it's the it's the boring safety car. So it's F7 and F8. Okay, so that's the ones that change. So move up would be F7 and move down would be F8. And F6 is camera type, which was already correct. Okay, then we'll start that up. I do need to check if it's focused on the thing. Does Robot.js have a way to focus on, check if it's focused on a station? Doesn't seem like it. That's a bit sad. NodeJS focus on setting focus tool with no thanks. Force focus. No thanks. Get focus window. There, wait. Active win? Sure. Yeah. I mean, that seems fair. Not run and yarn. I love these kinds of packages. Like I can just import them, like, and add them to the project. Import active win. Import active from and then I can just okay, so it is asynchronous, so I need to wait for so then I mean um oh I could or yeah, let's just do that and then oh wait no. Just let's do it. Basically, when the application starts, the client will start only F1 is focused. So when F122 is focused. So then we'll need to wait for that. What are all the options you can? No, I wouldn't want that. Because that's only for Mac and who the Mac, so window title, right? Yeah, the thing that we want. So const active window const window was await active window. And I do a do while. I do have a do while window title is not equal to check what is it stated as F1 executable, or is it no, it's that. Also have a process name of the app. But it does have owner and then name, which I would assume is process name. Let's just quickly check, right? Console log title and window owner. What the difference is between them? I already added that, sure. One start. And now if we go to the game, window, if no window. I think when you alt tab, it doesn't do. Why did it cancel that out? Oh, because all true. Let's just do that so I can So it should now, yeah. So it has F1 22 executable and F1 DirectX 12. So I think, right? The DirectX 12 is when you hover over it. Yeah, so that's the window title and the window executable is that. So let's just I can just do this actually. Let's just do if window dot owner dot name equal dot start with F1 20. If that's false, that because window can be null, then technically it's waiting. Technically that should be it, right? Right? I know. No, it actually is cancelled. Oh yeah, because I didn't never start. But so this should work, right? What I'll just do is I will always just start listening. So that's client.start. Then I will also add I'll put that in here, interval to check if F122 is focused. Set interval, which is an async method. Otherwise, won't do it. Check that every 250 milliseconds. Then we'll do const window equals active window. If there's no window, just return. And otherwise, is focused. Let's just keep that standard on false. And we'll check, okay, if is game focused is window. Question mark dot owner dot name dot starts with F122. And then I should check if that's true. Because if I'm correct, if I have this window question mark, that won't return a true or false, that will either return null or a value. Then I need to check if it's actually true, so that I know that it's true. Then, okay, that's funny. Yeah, so it does apply it here, by the way. So that's funny. This should also filter out all the non-active people, so all the non-DNF'd. So technically, it should just filter for all the people that are active. So if I change this to that, that should have the correct filter applied. It seems like the race just finished. There for that. Sure. All right, then this should only be applied if is game focused. If is game focused false, then it should return. Because this should never run when the game is not focused. Because otherwise you'll have that it does that. Which, if I focus on it now, it shouldn't apply buttons because technically there's no race going on. Wrong, could be not wrong. So I'll leave the session, right? Then I'll quickly go to another session where I can immediately join in as a spectator. Which doesn't have that many rounds driven. Why is there so many races that have... There we go, 1 out of 13. Can't join session, session is full. Well, that's something I wasn't looking. 22 out of 29. Sure, I'll join that. That has about 6 laps left now, and I probably join in at Miami, so that's good. So let's see if it will work. If I'm correct, it will standard focus immediately on the person who is in first position. I think I need to restart it. Assignment to constant variable. Oh, yeah, okay, fair. Assignment to constant variable. This should be a let. And the same with the is on board. That should also be a non-constant. That is also something, by the way. I don't know. If I can check if it's automatically paused, right? So how do I check that? Like, I don't know if there's a way to check if escape mode is on. I could check every, like, I could check here if it's the new value. So if I do let then if is game focused is false and new value is true, then set timeout to send a robot dot robot dot tap, and then I need to add the constant menu key, which is escape. After 500 milliseconds. Let's just do that. And when that has been tapped, then his game focus will be new value. Then I'll also add another if is game focused and value is false, then technically its value is always good. So that's up to date. All right, let's do that. Focus back on the game. Wait for it. All right, that work. Invalid key codes supplied. All right, what is escape? Oh, it's fully typed out, of course, yes. All right, let's start that. All right, so that technically works. So let's fix this, all right? So we're not on board. All right, there we go. We're focusing on that person because that person is in P1. Then we'll start the application. Then we'll alt tab back to the game. Focused on a battle. Huh. Interesting. Why did it change it? Let's just do a console log here. Focus on position. And then we'll do in brackets the position, the spectator index, just so I know what the current index is as well. Can I need to open a new terminal just so I can have that open on a second monitor, just so I can spectate what values are coming in. Oh, give me a second. Got a message. Oh, I've been called. Give me one moment. All right, we're back. Up. Yeah. So I now have a thing on my other searches, so I can keep an eye on thing. I should fix. I wish there was a way to get spectator data, right? It should focus on one, which it is currently. I think it goes wrong as soon as the person goes over the finish line. Focus on 13. Yeah, so that's the weird part. So I think that's where, because the 13th person just went over the finish line. So I think that's the issue. It's as soon as you go over the finish line that it goes wrong now, which was something that I would have that I already was assuming. So what I need to do is when the front car and the rear car. So currently it of course checks here. So check if it's closer than the closest pedal, which is technically no. It should look at the distance difference. So here. Then get thing is like lap distance that will work, but not if it of course means if a person laps and stuff like that. So let's say you have so also at session, that's there. So you have current lap number. And I could also base it off total distance now that I read, because that's the total distance through the whole session. Nah, that won't work actually. Should I do current lap time in milliseconds and then check that towards the person behind him? Because then you technically have it based off milliseconds, the distance, which would probably be better. And then I also need to look at, because now I have it sorted by the lab milliseconds, right? And then I to minimum milliseconds for focus. Time difference. So that's the time difference, right? This shouldn't be lap distance. This should be that. This should be real car, by the way. Right, so now it's based off the time, right, in milliseconds, which but then you still have it that as soon as it hits the finish line, it will be lowered. So we still need to check in a way for the current lap number. I'm using NodeJS to currently make a system. So in Formula F1 2020, the game, it automatically changes the camera based off battles. So if someone is closer to someone else, then it will focus on that. So that's technically what I'm making, and what I think of PHP, I think is an alright language for depending on what you want to do with it. I myself prefer generally Node over PHP because it's more performant. So that's technically quickly your questions, answers, and also hello Abdul, welcome to the stream. Stopping by. Just thinking of what a good way to do this is, because what I currently have with the situation, right, is that so current lap time in milliseconds will always be well, when he drives over the finish line, a person, the current lap time will be reset to 0. Let me just quickly, for myself, for my own sense, get the F1 game. So what it will do is, as soon as you drive over the finish line, it resets the current lap time to 0. Because you start a new lap. The problem is, if there's a car behind you that was fighting with you, and still is, he will still have a higher lap time, which causes for a major difference. So technically, if prior the time difference was small, and then the next time the packet is sent, the lap time is really big, I need to check if the lab time, the lab has changed. Like that's something that also needs to be checked on. So a way to do that is probably to check on what sector he is. If it's sector 3, that means he's probably close to the finish line. Sector 3 is always the one that's closest to the finish line. Then that's a possibility. Then I need to also check this is probably C++ in the backend because it's a telemetry system, so it's being sent, and I have a library in Node that just reads the telemetry from the game. And I think the game is based off C++ if I'm correct. So this is all the data I received from the game. And I assume that, yeah, I think the best way would to check on the sector and if it's sector 3. If both drivers are in sector 3, that's it needs to do it on a different way. Like maybe check if the car position is also. So check if position of the car behind is actually a person that is behind him. Or shouldn't I do? It's a bit difficult because I need to check in a way what the whole session, like the whole lap time is. The distance of the track. If I'm correct, that should be stored in session data. And session history. Session data's session package. Session package includes details about the current session. Where, if I'm correct, you have track length in. So I could get that, and then basically off that base get the track length and basically check if the distance is within a few 100 meters when it checked. If that is true, then it should apply that distance also to the person behind. So I think that should actually be a better way. So not base it off milliseconds, but base it back on this. And then also add the packet for checking getting the session data. So let me just copy that. Paste that, then packet would be session. Data received is well, if you have the drive for it, I would say don't throw the idea away because I myself am currently also studying game development. And technically, if you have the drive for it and want to do something with it, and of course you have always the hitbacks of possibly getting less motivated into your game, or you spend so much time working on it but you don't know how it will be received. Like The thing is, like, learning is always a thing that you always will do. IT, like, you never stop learning. Same with game development, like you always keep on learning. And if you keep having the drive for making a game, like if it's even like yeah, for 2 months, like a simple 2D Snake game, if it's your first, and of course you learn from it, like learning from it is the biggest thing of that regard. Like you learned from getting like if you in those 2 months learned how to make it, not just copy pasting and didn't learn a thing, then you will have a future in it because learning is a big part. And applying the knowledge you've learned is also a big part. Um, yeah, but like even if you copy pasted a lot, technically, if you still can go through it and understand the code, then you learn from it. That's a difference. Like following tutorials also helps a lot with understanding code and learning from it. If it's your first game, then I would always go from myself. My point of view is like whenever I code something and I copy pasted something from the internet, I generally go code by like line by line to check if I actually understand the line, and if I don't, I look it up. Can be tedious, but it helps me understand the code. And also, what I would do then is write a comment above it to if I didn't know it, like write a comment above it and just explain what it does. That the future you can look back on it and think like, oh yeah, actually learned that. And then like even copying pasting from your own code is a thing that happens even with me. That I just go to a different project, copy and paste, and because I made it once, then look through it and learn from it, then possibly in the future I can think of, hey, I made that once. Like even that is knowledge. Like, hey, I made that once. I can reuse it, reapply it in this situation. Like you can do that. My main way is also learning from trial and errors. Like so, code something. If it gives an error, look up the error, fix that error, try again, and keep on going until you also understand. And the main reason is to also understand the error, like you get, like why do you get that error? Play with it. Like if you have an error, fix it, and then still don't understand why you got the error. Play with the the result that you gotten to fix the error. Like knowledge is really important in IT, and that's just something that really comes to the top. Like knowing how things work is more valuable than just applying it. Um, the same with like if you code something like just say, do you have a future as a game dev? Like everyone could technically have a future as a game dev if they put the time and effort in it to actually learn to be a game dev. That's the thing. Like the time and effort is the main part in every situation. And HTML, JavaScript is a great way to start out. Um, And it even depends on what kind of game game dev you want to be in the future, because there's like different kinds. You can technically also work for mobile apps and all that kind of stuff. Like it's so big that you can skill like a lot, like do a lot. So that's what I would think of. Oh, app sounds cool. I'll start with it. But yeah, that's the thing. Like, I can spill you the answer. But what I would say is just look online, get that knowledge in, understand also the way that people express their knowledge. That's the most important thing. If you understand that, then going from one end in IT to the other end of IT is relatively easy. The learning part is the biggest thing in IT. So I hope that clears up your questions a little. Like, my work generally is because I learned a lot throughout the years. Just knowledge is a big part of IT. And sometimes I even forget stuff, like, and then I'll just Google it and then I'm reminded, and oh yeah, that helps. So even the biggest people probably in IT will still make mistakes in their code. Like, that's no that will always happen. Let me just change this back to data, so because I want this to be public data. Let session date. That will be empty. Starts and this will just be over data. Just so I have always the session data, right? Because that's pretty handy. Then I can always look at the total laps and the track length, because track length in this situation would be the way to go. So let's check if the front car's lap distance, right? So I need to check here, add some more checks here. So if the front car lap distance is less than, I think 100 meters would be enough. I don't know. How much meters a second is 300? 300, because that's generally the thing, right? So you have 300 kilometers an hour to meters per second. So that's 83 meters per second. So if I would take it as 500, then it has technically 5 seconds for it to catch up that ish. 6, 7, 8 maybe. So that's something that we'll check. So if the front car, right, dot m lap distance smaller than 500, which means he just started a new lap. And the rear car and that rear car, right, the car that should be behind him, But that could go wrong. That's the thing. Like, that's something that I just noticed. Like, if you have the lap distance, right? The lap distance will not be the same as the thing. So it shouldn't be lap distance, because as soon as you get a new lap, the lap distance order will be fucked up. So that should be session distance, total distance, yeah. But that doesn't, I don't know if that's total different distance around the lap. I think that's total distance, even if you go side by side to side to side to side to side to side to side. Like, if you go like a snake, technically that would also add on top of the total distance. But I don't know if that would it? It's hard, because technically that could, but also not. Like, so I need a way to check the distance between cars. Which is annoying. That's speed trap. It's penalty. Winner team. Hard lights, drive through, stop go. Buttons. Spins packet. Car setups, no. Car telemetry. Probably not. Car status. Final classification is also not correct. Hmm. Maybe it is though. So total distance could be, I think total distance is not based off. Because that would just be so fucked up actually. Gosh, then you could never calculate what the difference is between you and the guy behind you. Better forecast. Marshall zone. Package. Just a default header. Just like you could also base it off the actual real positioning of the car, but that would be overrated, right? Like this is the one thing that I don't know. Doesn't technically say if it's correct or not. Like there's no delta thing. That's something I'm curious. Like it has safety car delta, right? Which is delta in seconds for safety car, which I assume is only for the safety car. But where does it keep the driver in front time compared to your time? Like that just technically seems so weird. Like I could totally just sort it by the total distance, so that issue is solved. And then check if the lap distance of the front car is less than 500 and the rear car is above 500. That's because they shouldn't be like rotated around, right? The lap distance would be correct. So that means that the front car would probably be should be above 0. Because that's the thing, like the rear car's lap distance shouldn't be above 0. It shouldn't be. It's always above 0. Let's give it 200 milliseconds for the. So technically that, right? Then I would need front car lap distance or just this frame, right? To be plus equals total track distance. So that would be session data dot session data was stored, which is track length. So technically this would make it so just for that frame, right? The driver should be the thing. But what if you have someone who's so far away? Like that's the thing. You should be able to check if his previous frame was a different lap. I need to have another data. Let lap data history. Will be an array. Every time it ends, it should add the lap data history.push. Then this is the current data of data, which is lap data history dot last dot. There was something in get the last stuff array. See, should be the doesn't. That one is obvious. I mean, sure, I'll do it that way, I guess. Let's ref data. Sorry, lab data. Length. So that's the previous data, right? So now I always have to check the previous data. So then I'll check if the previous data dot lab is the current lab number. Is equal. Oh, I also need to do const. To but that won't work. Ah, that's annoying. So that would be how would I do that? So you have the previous from. It would be, then I need to store the actual car data with it, spin data of that person. So I'm see, this is the annoying part of the telemetry data, like participants data. Participants data, of course, is with all the participants, even if they left, still would hold. So that's that data. All right. So participants data. Is participants data. Where data lab data index all front car. Then I'll just be able to just do it different. Seep, because otherwise I'll get that. Then if thoughts shouldn't work. That's small. Then rear car dot participant. So now I'll always have the participant. And I'll store that into data, which actually won't work. It would. Should store it. Checked. So that will store that if that's the most annoying, right? If lab data history that then if are let's just do that a bit later because that's our that would probably be stored here then. That well gotten here. Const rev front car equals to uh app data dot bind c dot participant to front car. But that will also not be correct because participants, of course, also updates every data. So I need to check participant data. Because if I'm correct, participant data should have so I could do network ID. I check on that. I think that would be the best. And previous rear car would be then if the previous front car dots wait, should I just do it based off distance? Total distance. I'm just curious if the total distance doesn't help. Guess that. Just comment that. That. This won't even work technically. Or and distance difference with that, yeah. Front car always has more distant trim. If this would work, then I don't even know. Then I don't even have to worry about the lab data history. So let's check that if that works. If it doesn't, then I'll. So if it doesn't, then I'll probably will end the stream there. So I can go lunch and I'll do some more stuff. Let's join this session. Focused on the first person in the session. Start that. Was an error. Oh, because participant data is in the phone. Apparently that was called before. I need to check if it's a safety car. If it's a safety car. Is that session data? Started the second run. All right, safety car is in this lab, so that's nice to know. I don't know why it started focusing on the technically it's on the first driver. Always focus on the second driver. Type grab a Oh. Come on. Oh. Yarn start. Uh, Focus on second, that's correct. Focus on the third from second. Just focused on the fourth. So then focus on third of third, so that's correct. What it currently does. I think the minimum distance needs to be upped a little. Yeah, let me just try that. Like, it's annoying that all these safety cars are out because safety cars. So yeah, well, I need to check what safety car should technically always. That's an easy if statement. If session, what session data? The session data should hold safety cars. Motion. It's the session data. Session data. I think it should. Yeah, safety car status. If safety car status session data safety car status is equal to 1. That is a full safety car. Wouldn't do that on safety car. Then we'll return with change camera focus to front car. Always return to the front car then. Let's just don't do the history anymore. Don't think that's required. And we also need to go to the min for focus. Let's just change that to 1.5. Wait, what? Oh, say, wait, closest cars on track. Focus on to position 1. Alright, let's do that. Back to the first position. Start that. Focus on 1, which is correct, because it will always focus on the first driver when it's a safety car. But that's the thing now that I think of it, by the way, yeah? Because I always need a previous, by the way, because the previous holds the switch data. That's something that if you of course change driver, like if a driver pits, for instance, like the pitted driver shouldn't be the one that should be focused on. Should be the person, like the list of participants with their current position needs to be whole whenever we switch. So as soon as we switch, I should provide previous data for when it switched. And there should also be stored the front and rear runner. But that's a thing that needs to happen. Because as soon as we, of course, want to switch in the future is when, for instance, a safety car is out, right? And the first driver will go into the pits. He'll join back later, but it's still recognized for the application that it's the first driver because it was the first driver or it pitted. So we need to write some logic that also checks, is that the same participant? If it's not the same participant, we need to go to the participant who is actually in. Because we're watching a participant and not a position technique. As soon as we move, this driver moves to P, that will cause issues. There we go, we're now focusing on driver 2 because he's fighting with driver 1. Now we're focusing on now. This is where the problem lies, right? Now he passed him. He still thinks he's focusing on 1, whereas actually he's focusing on incorrect driver. Like as soon as a pass happens, we move towards different position as well, because we follow the participant, we don't follow the actual position, which is something we need to. But that will be fixed later down the line, not right now. So thanks everyone for watching the stream. I'll probably work on it some behind the scenes, and I'll see you all in the next stream because I'm gonna lunch right now. After that, I'll some issues. So thanks everyone for watching and have a pleasant afternoon or morning, or and I'll talk to you all later in a different stream, hopefully. Bye everyone.